Hello and welcome to my series of conversations with men and women whose ideas, vision and philosophy help describe our contemporary world. My guest today has been described as a eco-visionary. At the young age of 8, he set off as a wandering Jain monk. At 18, influenced by Mahatma Gandhi, he changed his path. He's currently director of the Schumacher College, director of programs. He's a co-director of the Bij Vidyapeeth in Dehradun, the editor of Resurgence. He's written extensively and widely on issues related to sustainable development, religion, philosophy, spirituality, the entire alternative paradigm of development. I'm delighted to welcome Professor Satish Kumar.
Pleasure to be here.
The most immediate enduring association with you has been Resurgence magazine and Schumacher, the name Schumacher. And you sort of associate Schumacher with small is beautiful, and in some ways that is the essence of your aspiration and your work.
First of all, E.F. Schumacher became more well known for his essay on Buddhist economics rather than Small is Beautiful. Small is Beautiful came later. He was sent by the British government to Burma, and there he discovered Buddhism. And he came back without finishing his assignment to bring about Western style of development to Burma. And he said to the British government that Burmese don't need Western style of development. They have a fine economic system, and that system is called Buddhist economics. And this was the first time when any economist educated at Oxford and working in the sort of corridors of power of British government using those two words together, Buddhist economics. So that made him first very well known, and then he started Intermediate Technology Development Group, and then later he wrote Small is Beautiful. So he has been a great friend and an inspiration to me, and it was him who eventually persuaded me to stay in England and become editor of Resurgence, because I wanted to come back to India and work here in the Gandhian movement.
Let's look at this idea of small is beautiful, which really was the conclusion, sort of brought together his many ideas and many philosophies. In an era where global capitalism, globalization, the large economies of scale, the free movement of labor, everything is contrary to that basic impulse. What chance, what possibility, in real terms, to this, what seems like a civilizational impetus, there are sort of cycles of civilization, which are now moving towards the larger and the bigger and the expansive in the material sense. Does this idea does it have a hope?
Yes, it has a hope, because this global capitalism and sort of obsession with economic growth and large scale is based on fossil fuel. Now, there are two problems with fossil fuel. Problem with number one is a limited resource, and eventually it will run out. So you cannot build a lasting civilization on something which is not lasting.
But the votaries would answer that science, about the time it begins to run out, will come up with alternatives, nuclear energy, hydrogen fuel, or what have you. The question is that while the logic and philosophy run counter to this, but in terms of that larger sweep of the processes that are unfolding, has there been any precedent in history where you've been able to reverse
Yes, there
tides
have been. I mean, many empires have reversed. The Roman Empire came and went.
The British Empire they just collapsed.
Collapsed.
Do you see
but
collapse
the industrial, global industrial capitalism is also going to collapse, because on the one hand, as I said, fossil fuel is going to run out. On the other hand, global warming is going to bring catastrophe. And if you go to nuclear power, that's as bad as fossil fuel, because uranium is not unlimited. So unless science can come up with a post-industrial vision of economy, which is not based on limited resources such as uranium or fossil fuel, petroleum, this civilization has maybe industrial global civilization, few hundred years, but it cannot last. But the bigger problem is the other one, and that problem is that the globalization eliminates human spirit and human element. And if a civilization is built on everything else, material, money, profit, everything else, but human beings are not in the center and not in command of the civilization, then that civilization cannot last forever, because it is not going to bring a sense of satisfaction, a sense of fulfillment, a sense of community, a sense of belonging, sense of sustainability of the earth. So this global, industrial, large-scale structure is a 9-day wonder.
And what do you think might follow? A harking back to the past, something that has worked previously, or something vital and new? Do you believe in the sort of the natural progression of civilizations, a spiral? Does it sort of come back to the center and then go out and suffer and come back? Or do you think something new might unfold?
There are two problems in thinking about going backward or forward. That is a kind of linear way of thinking, as if time goes from A to B. Time goes, as you said, in spiral, but also in circle. So, but what I am thinking about is not necessarily going backwards, but thinking about a post-industrial age. What will be an economy which will be based for a post-industrial situation? For example, solar energy I would put forward as an alternative view which will fit in with Schumacher's Small is Beautiful, because solar is distributed all around the world equally without having a centralized system where one person can control. So if you had, say, Indian government and the business and the industry put their energy in a post-industrial way of thinking and said, we are going to put research, development, and our science and our scientists and our educational universities will go and do some research not on nuclear weapons and nuclear energy, which is industrial age, out of date, yesterday's energy which we are pursuing now, but tomorrow's energy, which is solar energy. And I can guarantee that solar energy will never going to run out, whereas government cannot guarantee that nuclear energy is never going to run out. And secondly, I can guarantee that nuclear energy will have a side effects, like fossil fuel has side effect, and it will have a big problem of waste management, whereas the solar energy will not have side effect. So post-industrial economy will fit with the Schumacher's idea of small is beautiful, decentralized system, decentralized mode of production, where human beings are in the center and the energy resource is natural and infinite and eternal and non-polluting.
You're watching a conversation with Professor Satish Kumar, eco-visionary and a co-director of the Bij Vidyapeeth in Dehradun. We'll be right back after a short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to a continuing conversation with Professor Satish Kumar. You were talking about the human dimension, aspects of community, of compassion, of being close to nature. You're involved with the Bij Vidyapeeth in Dehradun as a co-director, which an initiative that seeks to bring largely young people, but people of different traditions, persuasions from all over the world, together, not only to be educated, but to experience these dimensions.
Yes.
What are the aspirations of the Bij Vidyapeeth?
The aspirations are on the lines of what we're thinking about, that bringing young people there to experience a sattvic way of agriculture and a sattvic way of life, which entails our relationship with the natural world. Bij Vidyapeeth is situated on Navdanya farm, which is a 30-acre farm where biodiversity of sattvic agriculture is promoted, and 200-300 varieties of rice, large varieties of lentils and pulses and millets and herbs and fruit, 500 mango trees. So taking people from this urban, industrial, economic growth obsessed civilization to a culture where Bij Vidyapeeth is presenting a post-industrial vision for the future. And so we are giving that experience, and the students begin to work on the farm as well as learn intellectually.
You mentioned, sort of sattvic agriculture, and you have most sort of recently amongst your many publications has been looking at the three qualities of life,
Yeah.
Rajasic, Tamasic, and Sattvic. And you have associated this very much with structures of power.
Yeah.
What is tamasic power? What is rajasic power? And what is, well, sattvic power sort of explains itself in some ways.
Yeah.
But how is this significant?
Sattvic power, as you say, explains itself on people like the Buddha and the Dalai Lama and Mahatma Gandhi and Mother Teresa, and people who have more inner power and their own radiating power is the sattvic power. But the rajasic power comes because of your status, because of your position, because of your office. So when you are prime minister, you have power. But when you are no longer prime minister, nobody thinks or talks about you. So that power is not sort of emerging from within, but it's a kind of given to you by the external office or status or position. You are director of something, you are manager of something, you are in charge of something. So that's a rajasic power. But the tamasic power is a power of desire to control, desire to impose, desire to dictate. So power which is based primarily on military power is tamasic power. Primarily based on police power is, I mean, you can have a small defensive and a kind of civilian power more important and military power subservient to civilian power. But at the moment, I think in the world, tamasic power of nuclear weapons and military invasion, that is the very prominent power.
So what
and
can
I'm
we
explaining
do?
that in my book
So
in
what,
more detail.
what can we do to promote, obviously, the ideal of sattvic power?
Yeah.
And very often I sort of wonder that the enormous influence of ideas and people like you put those out into the world.
Yeah.
But sometimes I despair is that the capacity of ideas to be able to truly transform civilizations.
Yeah.
I mean, are we lacking a Gandhi who could convert the ideas through specific techniques and practices and processes and movements into something truly transforming and significant? Because at the moment, with due respect, much of it seems peripheral.
Yeah.
And the activists of the alternative paradigm, naturally, are people who embody the sattvic element, but do not appear to be making the kind of impact.
I mean, there
that's
are
necessary.
exceptions. If you take, for example, Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu in South Africa, where after the end of apartheid, instead of using their military power and rajasic power, but even more tamasic power, and putting the perpetrators of apartheid on trial and putting them in jail or shooting them or hanging them, as it is happening in Iraq, they use sattvic power. So that is a great example that is not periphery, it's in the center of South African system and government that they organize Commission for Truth and Reconciliation and use sattvic power. But the thing is that we don't need to despair. The things change. The nature of the universe is change. And I mean, the Soviet Union and the communist power came to an end, and now there's a much more rajasic power there than what was sattvic power of Stalin and all that. And even in the United States now, there is the Republican Party losing power, shows that people, 60% of people are showing in the opinion polls that they are not interested in war. And Americans are saying that if we cannot win the war in Iraq, and we could not win the war in Vietnam, it shows that war is futile. We cannot win wars. So let's find a way of what I would call sattvic power. So we don't need to despair. And as I said in the beginning of our industrial power, which is also rajasic to tamasic rather than sattvic power, if we can go promoting these ideas, time is coming. And I'm an optimist. I'm hopeful that the human spirit is so powerful itself and has sattvic power. And in the end, I think this short-term tamasic power, aberration will go away.
But would you believe that, what are the mechanisms that you believe would bring about the personal transformations that much of this worldview assumes? You know, Gandhiji, need and greed, and obviously Gandhiji was able to provide the kind of leadership that impacted not only, you know, the social and economic spheres, but also personal transformations.
Yeah, yeah.
What might be the impetus for the personal transformations to evolve that will impact the larger context?
Yeah. The impetus is going to be a sense of alienation and frustration felt on a large scale, and growing disparity between the rich and the poor. Because in spite of all the miracles of science and technology and centralized power and economic growth, all the things we have seen in this industrial age, we see growing desperation, deprivation, alienation, increasing poverty. 60 years of world effort from the United Nations, from many aid agencies, and all the Indian governments which have changed over the years have promised that they will remove poverty, and yet poverty is increasing, and it is increasing because of industrial economic growth. It is the cause of not only globalization and global warming, but also it's a cause of poverty. So when large numbers of human beings realize that in spite of all the wealth, in spite of all the cars and aeroplanes, in spite of all the roads and big cities and information technology, what have we got is alienation, dissatisfaction, breakdown of families, breakdown of communities, breakdown of societies, polluted rivers, polluted atmosphere, not good food but bad chemical food. So all these things are going to come back to haunt, and people will realize, I feel and I believe, and that's my optimism, that the human spirit will rise to say that let's look for a better alternative. What is a way where we can live with prosperity, we can live with happiness? I mean, material comforts are not something wrong.
But do you really think that people will be willing to give up, I don't know what, cell phones, air travel, computers, information technology? Do you really think that in this process people will actually say, now let's put away these things?
Yeah.
Because they intrude on, you know, my private space and time. You know, a cell phone intrudes on interpersonal communication. We're just, you know, talking on this. So we are going to stop using technology.
Yeah. No, it's not a question of using, stopping to use technology. The question is mixing the idea that technology is going to solve our human problems. That is going to change. You can use cell phone. I'm not against cell phone, or I'm not against any information technology. But at the moment, the idea, the ruling dominant philosophy is that material possessions and economic growth and having lots of accumulated items and goodies will make me happy, will make me respected, will give me a kind of honor. That idea is going to change, and the world is going round and round in circles and increasing alienation and desperation. It's not because we use cell phone or computer. That's a very minor thing. It is happening because we have confused the idea that all these material, physical technologies and scientific gadgets and material possessions are going to make me happy and going to give me more respect. And they are not going to make you happy. When you come to that, then things will start to change.
You're watching a conversation with Professor Satish Kumar, editor of Resurgence, co-director of Bij Vidyapeeth, as I described him earlier, and eco-visionary. We'll be right back after a short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to a continuing conversation with Professor Satish Kumar. You used the word happiness several times. What does it mean for you to be happy?
Happiness is a result of harmony. When I am in harmony with myself, my own being, and realize who I am, when I am in harmony with my fellow human beings, my family, my community, my neighborhood, my human community at large, and when I'm also in harmony with the natural world, the trees, the rivers, the earth, the soil, the animals, the universe. When we are in harmony, then we are at ease. I am at ease, and I am not in anguish, not in anxiety, not in a kind of feeling of discomfort and disease. Dis-ease is disease. So feeling in harmony with yourself and with the world around you, human and other than human, makes me happy. And I think makes everybody happy.
And your happiness has a quality of altruism, compassion, a quality of activism to it.
Yes.
And perhaps that was the impulse that when you went out as a young, wandering Jain monk at age 8, and you were exposed to the work of Gandhiji,
Yeah.
would that have been an impulse that you felt that beyond the pursuit of your own happiness,
Yes.
that you needed to be more assertive?
Absolutely. My happiness does not depend on me. My happiness depends on relationship with the others. I am not happy if I am not in relationship. A sense of belonging brings you happiness. And what Mahatma Gandhi's book, when I was a Jain monk, gave me this idea that this escape from the world and retiring from the world and thinking the world is a bad place, a kind of bondage, a trap, and I have to free myself from the world, day-to-day world, to be happy, is mistaken. We have to bring spirituality, non-violence, truth, compassion, kindness, all the good qualities of spiritual values into daily life, everyday life, and transform ordinary activities of gardening, doing business, making home, growing food, community. All our life has to be transformed, everyday ordinary life, into spiritual practice. That message of Gandhi appealed to me. I was grateful to my Jain gurus and Jain teachers, Acharya Tulsi and all the other teachers, from whom I learned a great deal. The principles of non-violence, the principle of compassion. But what Gandhi gave me was extending that non-violence from personal non-violence, from personal spirituality to a more worldly and a more social spirituality and a social non-violence and a social truth. So bringing personal, social and environmental and integrating them together was the key which Mahatma Gandhi gave me.
One of your sort of best-known books is Buddha and the Terrorist, which looks at the process that the Buddha used to transform Angulimala, sort of the villain who would wear a garland of fingers of people that he chopped off.
Yeah.
So obviously you have been enormously motivated, driven by a study of this process of transformation.
Yes.
How you can use your own evolved self or your own evolution and where you're coming from, in a sense, to impact and transform someone else. What has been your everyday experience with this? Do you feel changed over the years when you meet people? Do you feel that they respond to you differently than they did 20 years ago?
Transformation happens, in my experience, when you let go of fear and you are prepared to take risk, because transformation is a change. If you hold on to the state in which you are, you cannot transform. So, for example, when Buddha and Angulimala meet, Angulimala says to the Buddha that, do you know who I am? I am Angulimala, who can kill you without blinking an eye. At that moment, Buddha is not afraid of death. Buddha is have no fear. He says, yes, Angulimala, I do know who you are, and you can kill me without blinking an eye. But do you know who I am? I am the Buddha, who can die without blinking an eye.
Has this been, this realization been transforming for you? And I guess that the only way you can really measure whether it has been transforming is how other people react to you.
Yeah.
So have you felt a change in the way that other people that you interact with over your own journey have
Yes, absolutely,
changed?
Absolutely.
In what ways?
Absolutely. I mean, for example, in my journey of life, I went around the world on foot.
You
walking.
traveled from Gandhi's grave to Kennedy's grave.
That's
the
right,
great story.
8,000 miles. And in that journey, when I came on the border of Pakistan, a very close friend of mine said, "You are going to Pakistan without money, without food, and walking. My heart goes out after you." He was in tears. He said, "Please take some packets of food with you." And that was the moment of fearlessness. I said, "I cannot take food with me. These packets of food are not packets of food. They are packets of mistrust." What am I going to say to Pakistani friends? That I did not trust you, so I brought my own food with me. My friend in tears. I said, "Why are you crying?" He said, "I'm crying because I don't know if I will see you again." I said, "Don't worry. If I don't come back, if I die walking for peace, that's the best way to die. Don't worry." I walked into Pakistan. Miracle happened. And miracle can happen when you have no money. Because you are open to anything happening. I hear somebody calling me. "Are you Satish Kumar and E.P. Menon who are going for peace to Moscow, Paris, London, Washington?" I was utterly surprised. I said, "Yes, I am." "But who are you?" Because I don't know anybody in Pakistan. That was the moment of transformation, that here was a Pakistani, a Muslim, whom I thought we had 3 wars between India and Pakistan. We are a warring country, and he says that I want to welcome you, and I want to see you, and I wanted to know you, that you are working for peace. I want to work for peace.
Your life has been so many unfoldings in the present of so many little and large transformations.
Yes, exactly.
Moving in some ways from imperfections to perfections.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there is an absolute perfection attainable in the human form. What remains?
What remains is the self. Self. And that self is to be self-realized.
Thank you, Professor Satish Kumar. That's a great privilege and a great honor. Sir.
Thank you very
It's been
much.
wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.